Cup game, and that was back in March. And quite frankly, at the start of September, we could have wished for better conditions. There's not much difference tonight. A wet, windy Pittodrie Stadium, and we had been told earlier that this was going to be a sellout match with a 23,000 crowd, but it now looks as if some tickets have come back from Hearts and there may only be a couple of thousand Hearts fans. But nevertheless, conditions on the ground good for a great cup tie, and we're going to ask Gordon McQueen now about his views on that game. Gordon, you've seen both these teams in the last week. Do you think there's any chance of any repeat of that game in March?
Well, that game last March was something of a surprise because Hearts were going very well at the time and they were expected to do better, but they never. Aberdeen, well, anything's possible. I mean, I watched them at Celtic Park on Saturday. They were absolutely magnificent. But for the same result, same scoreline, I don't think so, because Hearts have got far too many good players. I would expect Aberdeen to win, but it'll be a very, very tight game.
We see warming up there Hearts veteran fullback Walter Kidd. Do you think this is an indication of how Hearts are going to play the game?
Well, certainly in the Skull Cup tie that we watched last week, they played three at the back, which was something of a surprise for Hearts because a lot of their success has been built on the three playing up front, Crabb, Cahoon and Robertson, and they reverted back to a somewhat more defensive system last week, and they may do the same again tonight, but they've had injury problems in the right back position, so maybe that's why Walter Kidd's playing.
Well, Gordon, we won't push you to a prediction just yet, but if you join us again 20 minutes for the kick-off here and the main event, 2 hours of great football. Now it's back to Anna in the studio.
Thank you, David. Sandy Lyle has warned that Europe...
No statues of liberty for us, just the cold North Sea, the rain, the skirl of the seagull and the slate-grey sky over the granite city. They breed 'em tough up here, you know. Once a vibrant fishing centre, the trawlers have moved to Peterhead now, leaving Aberdeen as the centre of the oil world. 30,000 people work on the nearby rigs, and as you can see, it's pretty wet tonight. But Aberdeen's the place to be, you know. 10,000 people down the road to see Deacon Blue in concert, and almost 20,000 will be here at Pittodrie for the Skull Cup quarter-final, Aberdeen against Hearts. A historic ground, this. It was the first all-seated stadium in British football with a historic backdrop. The golf links behind the far stand are said to be among the oldest in the whole world. So, good evening. And the locals here, you know, call Aberdeen the Silver City because of those wonderful granite buildings, but also, perhaps, because of the trophy cabinet at the local football club. The Skull Cup and the Scottish Cup won last year, and the way they performed against Celtic in the league on Saturday, surely more trophies must be coming this way this season.
Well, no flag going up against Mason inside the penalty area. Oh, tremendous ball by Paul Mason. 54 minutes gone here at Park. McKimmie used an arm to control the ball. A free-waving play on, picked up by Van de Ven. Martin Hayes with him. Ryan Grant providing the cross. Robert Connor! Oh, tremendous save by Robert Connor! Makes it 2-0 to Aberdeen. Oh well, a marvellous save. Mason through to Heelhouse. Elliott giving chase, Hans Heelhouse. And a good goal for Aberdeen.
Gordon McQueen with us as ever, and Hearts went down to Dunfermline on Saturday. They're 4-1 outsiders to win tonight. Is that a fair reflection of the way the team stand, do you think?
Well, certainly the way Aberdeen played on Saturday, they've got to be the bookies' favourite. I mean, I think Alex Smith's got things dead right at Aberdeen just now. I mean, their midfield was absolutely outstanding tonight. They've added Van der Ven, who's slotted into the midfield wonderfully well. They've a little Brian Grant, a young player in the middle of the park that's playing out his skin just now. And of course, Hearts have had a little bit of a disappointing start to the season, but seemingly played very well at Dunfermline and just couldn't put the ball in the back of the net, which is surprising for Hearts.
Mind you, we saw Hearts last week, of course, and that was their problem again against St Mirren, wasn't it?
Well, certainly last week they adopted a sweeper system, which looking at their team tonight, I don't think they will do. I think they'll put 4 in the middle of the park tonight, which they've got to do, because no doubt Alec MacDonald seen that match, or had scouts at the Aberdeen match and Celtic match on Saturday, and seen that Aberdeen's midfield were a big threat, and he'll have to do something about that.
OK, Gordon, well, action coming up from us here at Pittodrie after this short break. September in the rain, and they're absolutely spot on as far as we here at Pittodrie tonight are concerned. The players out on the pitch behind us, and Gordon, Aberdeen top of the Premier Division at the moment. I mean, obviously it's very early stages, just 2 games, but they are going to be a real threat, aren't they, to Rangers this season?
Yeah, no question about it. I think a lot of people are going a bit presumptuous saying that Rangers are going to run away with the league. Certainly in the form that Park played on Saturday, that's not the way it's going to be, and we're absolutely outstanding on Saturday.
Mind you, Rangers last night against Wraith, I know we were talking about playing a first division side, but they were pretty impressive as well, 6 goals to 2. I don't know if you've seen that.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously some terrific goals scored. I mean, Terry Butcher scored a fantastic goal last night and put a rather nice one in his own net as well.
Actually, I think we can have a look at these goals. David Livingston was our man at Ibrox last night.
A match of quality goals, and unthinkably for most of the crowd of 51,000, the opener was for the First Division side. The scorer Ronnie Coyle, and the joy of stunning the mighty Rangers, obvious for all to see. Rangers' patience paid off though. Dutch winger Peter Hoekstra brilliantly setting up Alan McCoist for the equaliser. A sweet moment for the striker who's been spending much of his time on the bench. Into the second half, and a Gary Stevens cross sets up Maurice Johnston. That made up for a string of first-half misses. 5 minutes later, Johnston's header sent Nigel Spackman on a run, his squared pass providing McCoist with his second. So 3-1 for Rangers, and last year's beaten finalists apparently cruising. But then a Wraith Rovers attack, and all of a sudden Terry Butcher wants to score a goal. Distress for a moment. Well, 55 seconds actually, well that's all it took for the big man to channel his anger into the goal of the match. That was at the right end this time, and teammates saluted a 2-goal hero. A nice touch from Terry Hurlop a couple of minutes later.
Well, sorry to leave that action, but they're kicking off a bit earlier than we expected, so let's hope we get a few goals like Terry Butcher's last night here this evening. Commentary team Andy Gray and Martin Tyler.
Thank you, John. Good evening, everyone. It's a beautiful night for football in that the rain has slicked the pitch. There's a terrific atmosphere inside the stadium. Aberdeen in red attacking the goal to the right in the first half. They gave such a good account of themselves at Celtic on Saturday that these players really dictated tonight's policy to the manager, Alex Smith. An unchanged side, of course. But Hearts have abandoned their recent policy of 3 central defenders. And they're going with a similar 4-4-2 formation to Aberdeen, with particular attention to trying to choke some of the life out of the skillful Aberdeen midfield with Van der Ven, the latest Dutchman to arrive here. The flag has stayed down, and the chance has been missed by Robert Connor, which would have given Aberdeen an absolute flyer.
Well, this is a great chance early on from Aberdeen. They started very, very positively. Robert Connor gets himself in a great position. And I think the thing with that one, on his weaker right foot, I'm sure Robert Connor would have liked that on his left foot. Fortunately, it fell on his left, on his right, but a great chance early on for Aberdeen.
The best left foot in Scotland, but perhaps further down the list when you look at the right foot. But a real let-off for Hearts, who will be settling into a system that has Neil Berry playing tonight at right back. Levine and McPherson. There's Berry, who didn't train yesterday because of a damaged toe. Levine and McPherson, Scotland international men, of course, as the 2 centre-backs, and McKinley at left-back. In front of them, a line of 4 across midfield, but they're deep in their own territory again at the moment. McPherson gets it away. Brian Grant trying to deal with the bounce. David Robertson plays it with not quite enough angle on it, really, and the flag was up this time against Paul Mason. Well, Henry Smith not called upon to make a save, and mightily relieved when Robert Connor got into a position which can only go down as a very good chance for the home side. The Skoll Cup holders, of course, the Scottish Cup holders, the leaders in these early days of the Premier Division. It's brimming with optimism up here at Aberdeen, but Hearts have qualities too. I just want to be able to settle and stop Aberdeen driving on as they are in these opening moments. McKimmie taking it from Bet. Aberdeen so eager to get to the ball. Turned back by Robertson David after Robertson John of Hearts was trying to make a nuisance of himself. Theo Snelders. Eamon Bannon back in the selection in this reshaped Hearts side. A free kick given against Brian Irvine. So John Robertson, a candidate perhaps for his first Scottish cap in a week's time against Romania. And up, number 10 up with Robertson, Wayne Foster, who's been recalled after past successes in worrying the life out of Aberdeen defenders. Hearts have got a good league record here. They did lose in the Scottish Cup quarter-final 4-1 on their last visit. Bannon. Here's Foster. There is all action. Not always totally in control of what he's doing, but he's not the sort of player that defenders like to mark. Total commitment. Qualities which should impress Andy Gray.
And the type of player that could just unsettle this Aberdeen defence.
Well, that's what Hearts are hoping for. Remember, we have to have a result tonight. Whether it might take extra time or even penalties. The Skoll Cup quarter-final coming live to you from Pittodrie on the Sports Channel. McPherson above Hillhouse. O'Bannon was wrong-footed and Grant so eager to take it up for Aberdeen. Here's Tosh McKinley. The linesman on the far side goes under the name of Willie Miller. He is the only Willie Miller involved tonight. The footballing version spent this morning training with Aberdeen's reserves, although he'd love to still be involved in the first team, and I think deep down believes that he still will be involved as the season progresses. Foster came to him a little to his surprise. Here's McKinley. It's a midfield for Hearts tonight without Derek Ferguson, the £750,000 man. He is a substitute. Hasn't quite been right. The feelings of Alec MacDonald, the Hearts manager, and possibly even fairer to the player just to take him out of the spotlight. But he's there on the bench should he be required. Mason made it his when really he shouldn't have done that. And it's Van der Ven! So they have a new Dutch hero to cheer at Aberdeen. Peter Van der Ven, 28 years old, recommended to Alex Smith by none other than Johan Cruyff. But Paul Mason beavered away here when Hart should have cleared it. And how about that for technique on the half volley?
Yes, it was actually an excellent ball from Jim Bett that set it all off. But Paul Mason does very well, wins the ball in the area where he probably shouldn't. And that's a tremendous finish from Peter van de Ven. He's settled down really well in this Aberdeen side. And that must be a great fillip for him tonight. But just the start that Hearts didn't want.
Well, they had the warning when Connor missed, and they weren't able to heed it. Well, this connection to Holland being used so cleverly by Alex Smith and Jockey Scott here. When you think of Snelders and Hillhouse, players of proven pedigree, and Van de Ven comes into that category, although he's not a full international, but highly regarded in the Dutch game, and he's played for Holland at every other international level except in the senior side. But it's a free kick to Hearts. They want to hit back as abruptly as they can. Craig Levine is right in there. Van de Ven doing the defending, but not too well. Planted back by Bannon as an offside. As both Foster and John Robertson went in. Referee George Smith, of course, was on World Cup duty. Van de Ven. The ball forward was played by Levine. McKimmie was also in Andy Roxbury's squad, of course. Berry covering at right back for Hearts, and now as the ball went behind him, a very tight offside decision indeed, particularly given the new regulation about the level, the advantage with the attacker, who on that occasion was Hillhouse.
But just looking at the Hearts defence, Mark, they seem to have a problem already. They have got Neil Berry there, they have suffered with people being injured, the right back's been injured, Al McLaren and right, and they've put Neil Berry there, and he just looks a little bit out of sorts at the moment. He's been tucked in. Alan McDonald will be a very worried man at the moment, having lost that quick goal. But Neil Berry's just tucking in a bit much and marking one of the strikers, which is leaving a big hole down the left, and already Aberdeen have exposed it twice.
And Hillhouse naturally does go that side. In fact, Holland used him in the World Cup as a sort of left-sided forward, restricted to that part of the pitch.
Oh, you fucking shit!
But certainly the understanding that Mason and Hillhouse showed together at Parkhead on Saturday would be particularly promising for Aberdeen, and they're going to get plenty of service from this talented midfield, although Connor didn't quite live up to the billing then. It's a night for raincoats, and Andy Roxburgh is one of the later designs. Alex Smith is the Aberdeen manager behind him. John Robertson, I'm sure, very much under the spotlight of the Scotland manager. He might find himself a little short of forwards, although he will have been delighted to have heard about Ali McCoist's hat-trick in the Skull Cup quarter-final at Ibrox last night. Here's Van de Ven for Aberdeen. Mason, Connor. Oh, Hillhouse pressing Berry into conceding the corner. Stress on the faces of the Hearts defenders, and understandably so. Aberdeen with a 100% record this season, looking to extend that and move on to the Skull Cup semi-finals. Mason takes the corner. Grant with a free header. Irvin is in there again, and it's gone all the way through for goal number 2, Paul Mason. Hearts being thrust aside here. Aberdeen making and taking the chances.
Well, really, I wonder where Hearts' defence is. They really are all at sea. Not only is Paul Mason here as the ball comes over, any one of 2 Aberdeen players were completely free at the back post. But this is a piece of finishing from a striker who's playing with supreme confidence. Just look at that. Henry Smith, absolutely helpless. He doesn't get his head down and thrash it. He thinks, I can pick my spot, I'm good enough. And that's a superb finish from a very confident player.
2 goals in 12 minutes. The romance, really, of Paul Mason goes on. It's one of the most intoxicating stories to have gone to Holland in the manner of the television series Auf Wiedersehen, Pet, to look for work as a labourer, having failed to make the grade in English football, and to get a chance to play in Scotland and be a genuine star. Foster. 4-1 here in the Scottish Cup quarter-final 6 months ago against Hearts. It could be worse than that, the way it's going in the Skull Cup quarter-final. Mackay. John Cahoon. Hearts need something to go their way in this half of the field to inject some belief. There's no shortage of that from the players wearing all red. And there are gaps opening up everywhere. And there was a hint of desperation about the lunge by McPherson. He got away with it. Cahoon. Well, Hearts had about half an hour's rehearsal of this formation yesterday afternoon at Tynecastle. With the greatest respect to Alec MacDonald, it didn't really look enough, Andy.
No, I think it's obviously not what his game plan was, but it certainly wasn't to give 2 goals away so early. And he really is now, he's helpless. I mean, his tactics are there, he's picked his formation. I was actually very surprised that he dropped the sweeper formation, because it looked very solid against St Mirren last week. And I thought he would play it certainly early on in this game, maybe for an hour, just to frustrate Aberdeen. It surprised me that he was quite confident enough to pick 4 defenders, especially when there was a problem at right back. And he suffered for it. And now he's got to sit there and do it. What can he do? How can he juggle it around? There he is, trying to change things. And there's not an awful lot he can do from there now, Alec. It's in the lap of his players, certainly for a little while now. And they've just got to hope for a bit of a break. But they definitely can't afford to lose another goal, Martin.
And there's no hint of complacency yet from Aberdeen, although there's always a possibility of that when you surge into such a quick lead so decisively. McKinley has gone a long way, and Cahoon, who crops up in unexpected places for John Robertson, stopped by the long legs of McLeish. David McCreary keeping Hearts going forward with Bannon. Mackay. Foster. And that's an awkward one. It's going to be a corner. Snelders, in fact, was sure it was going to spin over the bar. It wasn't quite so apparent from this angle. And almost a little bit of good fortune that Hearts in this predicament so badly need.
Well, it was a good little build-up as well. Some nice little interplay around the edge of the box from Hearts, showing that at least up front they've got the confidence to play it.
Irvin taking Levine, Cahoon taking the corner. Oh, and Snelders wasn't very convincing. McCreary. And the second time was a better effort. It's hard to remember these days, but David McCreary actually started with Manchester United as a striker back in the mid-70s. And he now, and for many years, has had a holding job in a variety of midfields, the clubs, and of course the Northern Ireland. Levine was late on the Hans Hielhaus. Grant making things happen really with sheer determination. That's making things happen with real quality from Connor. Bannon in the way. Hearts without a league win so far, although they haven't been so dissatisfied with their performances. Will be a free kick in their favour against Connor. McPherson is forward again. Mackay. Mason will try and just buy Aberdeen a bit of time with the help from Bet. McCreary doing what he does best, winning it for Hearts, and now Gary Mackay and company must be wishing that they were competing as they're doing now at a 0-0 situation, rather than the 2 goals down that they find themselves. Goals from Van der Ven and from Mason. Bannon. Well, McLeish started to move out. In fact, the offside decision was given. He then had to backpedal in case it wasn't. Remember, Rangers through, Dundee United through, Aberdeen going well, and Celtic already a goal up against Queen of the South. Jackie Jakanowski. Been in a spot of difficulty, only momentarily. Van der Ven trying a little too much. That can be a fault when you're 2 goals to the good. Players try a few extra touches. There's space here behind Aberdeen that Foster looks to exploit. Tied it up by McLeish.
I can't help feeling that Alec McDonald will be kicking himself, Martin, because they're actually playing quite well now. Hearts have settled down and starting to put a bit of pressure on Aberdeen. And Alec McDonald must be wondering, why didn't we start like this like 15 minutes ago? Because they really are competing for every ball now, getting in their tackles, which is something they didn't do in the first 5 minutes, and they've paid dearly for it.
No sign of emotion from Alex Smith. And I'm sure those watching in his restaurant in Stirling will be delighted for him. A man of many parts, the Aberdeen manager. I don't know whether we call this his day job or his night job. It's certainly a job he's doing very well. And in assessing talent, he He actually saw Paul Mason when he was on a scouting trip looking at the goalkeeper, Snelders. He certainly didn't have tunnel vision. They both ended up coming here.
And it's a connection that's paid handsome dividends for him, isn't it?
Good players at good prices. Whether Andy Roxburgh, though, appreciates what's happening is another matter. Wondering how many non-Scotsmen are going to be playing in the Premier Division with each passing year. For the uninitiated, we should stress that Mason is English. Bannon, very much a Scot. Robertson likewise. There's been no real European policy at Tynecastle. They wouldn't mind being the only club in Edinburgh. Hearts in a bit too much of a hurry to take the free kick. Mason's got to retreat, surely, and Connor as well. On a very wet night, it's a bright picture though here for Aberdeen as Hillhouse takes it up and challenges McPherson. McKimmie had made a run through the centre. Bannon provided a second line of defence. And uses the ball well to Foster, who can run and isn't frightened of taking players on, and is furious here that Hearts haven't been given maybe a step ladder back into the game. George Smith was close enough to make the adjudication. Andy Gray.
Well, I can't help thinking that Hearts have got a case here. I think Wayne Foster does extremely well, and if we just watch it very carefully, he gets to the ball first. There's the poke. And there he comes down. I think that's a penalty, I must admit.
Henry Smith, as Foster still rues his fate. Henry Smith stopping Hearts going 3 down. And it was a good save on a night that's going to be difficult for goalkeepers. Well, there was an indication that one of the parts of the game plan for Hearts, the introduction of Wayne Foster, might be a sound one. But what Hearts have got to do is keep Aberdeen at bay to some extent. Easy to say, not so easy to do. But I must say, they haven't fallen apart after Aberdeen had fired with both barrels.
And I don't think they will either, Mark, because they were very badly stung last year in the Scottish Cup when they were defeated here 4-1. And I don't think they want that again. So I don't think we'll see this Hearts team giving in tonight at all.
That was an occasion where they came here very much as favourites and by their own admission believed the publicity, cast in the role of underdogs, justifiably it might seem at the moment. And Aberdeen looking every inch the favourites. But it's been a better last 10 minutes for Alec McDonald's men. David Robertson up well. Jim Bett pondering the possibilities before releasing the ball. Grant, 3 in the centre for Aberdeen, one of whom is McKimmie. Laid back by Mason to Bett. That looked a pretty interesting strike. McLeish still loyal to Aberdeen's cause, although it did seem for a while in the summer that he might move, with Newcastle being of particular interest to McLeish, but then they couldn't come up with the money. And Aberdeen delighted that McLeish has signed a new 2-year contract. Bet a new 1-year contract. Here's Connor. And Levine having to repair the damage caused by Cahoon's miscue. Quite often Hearts have been playing with 3 strikers, Andy, and that's been obviously a casualty of the change of system here. And Scott Crabb not even on the bench. Partly because Neil Berry here has this problematic toe, and that's why I think Walter Kidd is one of the substitutes. McLeish. Across there with that direct style again, and the defenders catching him with those trailing tackles.
Yes, I think he feels he's been a little bit half done by in the last couple of minutes with the penalty decision and now the free kick. But he's the type of player that will get Hearts back into the game, Martin. Never say die attitude. He'll continue to look for the ball. He'll always be available. He's totally invaluable in a situation like this when your team are trailing 2-0. You need people like him to stand up and be counted. And Wayne Foster's certainly one of those.
I was talking to Terry Butcher earlier today, and he was saying what an awkward opponent Wayne Foster is. I suppose the criticism of Foster is he just doesn't score enough goals. And that was always the way in his early days in England with Bolton and Preston, England Youth International. So if you're looking for big hearts, if you'll pardon the pun, certainly Foster would come into that category, and Hearts have shown a lot of character. Lesser teams would have been totally crestfallen by the start that they made here. Brunt. And McCreary didn't seem to be too close to the ball. He certainly made contact with Brunt. Half an hour gone. Aberdeen 2, Hearts 0, Skull Cup quarter-final. Henry Smith in the firing line again. And will Connor try and curl one here? No, it's Robertson who comes late on the scene. Oh, and Van der Ven. Good tackle by McKinley. Back from Grant. Josh McKinley just knocked it away from Van der Ven, who was sensing perhaps his second goal of the night. Bannon. McPherson. Not quite the service that Cahoon would like, but he challenged bravely for it. Well, Hearts fans looking for perhaps something to lift their hopes, and the Premier League results between the two clubs last season would be a source of encouragement. Now Aberdeen win there. And Foster in a sprint with Snelders. Mason's header on, Hillhouse laying the ball off. Van der Ven crossing. Connor heading down, and slightly more power to it. And it would have been a very clean incision into Hearts. McKimmie. Owen Smith didn't get there, Hillhouse did, and the goalkeeper mightily relieved.
Well, again, it's another super ball, and it's in that area where the goalkeeper isn't sure, shall I come, shall I stay? But Hans Hillhouse goes in after it, just beats Henry Smith to it, and Hearts are very fortunate to still only be 2 down.
Well, they joke at Tynecastle that Henry Smith's the best gambler in the club. And he gambled then, and well, he didn't lose in the end, but he might now. It's Mason. Well, to my mind, you're watching the best of British here.
This is as strong an Aberdeen side as I've seen for many years, Martin. They look to be getting that aura about them that says they're invincible.
And Foster. A measure, really, of the concern that Hearts are feeling throughout the team. All of them being called upon to defend.
You even get the impression at times that if Hearts were to score, then Aberdeen would just go up the park and score again. That's how confident they are playing.
Bet. Oh, and this is Hillhouse. Well, the recovery came from Berry. And my word, the Hearts needed it. Ferguson cropping up on the right. And hoping that there's cover behind him, out of position. David Robertson. It's simply another corner. They fail a stress test at the moment, Hearts. It's a harrowing evening for them at Pittodrie. Irvin coming from deep, if it goes that way, it's not quite able to reach him. McKimmie, and there is an offside against Hillhouse. Andy John Cahoon picked really as a midfield player here, but they're going to have to get him up alongside the other two as often as they can.
Yes, you do feel that the 4-3-3 formation Hearts normally play will come in soon. I don't think anything will change much before half-time, Martin. I think Alec MacDonald would like to see them go in at 2-0 and get things sorted out at the end, but I certainly feel second half that could be the change we see.
He might count his blessings if it's only 2. Irvin miscalculating. He's got a second bite at it. Mason. Connor had a look left and there was no one there initially, although Hillhouse has gone that way now. But on the right, Van der Ven keeping the shape for Aberdeen. Holding them up momentarily. Good brave header by Berry. Oh, and Berry. Well, there was an incident there that summed up what Hearts are going through. He turned his back. But let's not lose sight of the fact that if Hearts could get a goal, the whole way the night is shaped up would change. And Aberdeen might be slightly fretful that their good work hadn't built a better advantage.
Yeah, that's what Alec McDonald will be hoping. I mean, when a team's 2-0 up and playing the way Aberdeen are playing, you think that there's no end to it. But a goal against and maybe just a little bit of doubt then creeps into the opposing side, and that's what Alec McDonald will certainly be hoping for. His team do badly need a goal, though.
Here's Gary Mackay. Certainly making Cahoon stretch. McCreary fighting the good fight for Hearts. And they've got the free kick. Two real warriors in there, Grant and McCreary. If it's a bang on the head, there isn't a lot of protection. And referees have been instructed to be very firm about players who have any head damage, but it doesn't look at all serious for McCreary, who's veered back away from heading towards the dugout, and now he's on the edge of the penalty area. Well, this is John Robertson, and that is Snelders. Not a lot to do, but when called upon, if that had bounced off him, Hearts could have been back in business.
Yes, and it shows you what a good goalkeeper he is. Very skiddy night, very difficult to control that ball, but he gets his body behind it, wraps his big arms around it. It wasn't going anywhere but sticking in his chest.
Where's this going from Mason? Not where he wanted it. Connor. He hoped for a free kick, but George Smith waved away what was not much more than a stare by Bobby Connor, who, like John Robertson, could find himself in Scotland colours in a week's time, in a very tricky start to a European Championship campaign against Romania. Sort of country you need to take on with a settled side. It's not a luxury afforded to Scotland, though, through a variety of circumstances. McKimmie. Bet, who's retired from international football, a self-inflicted retirement. 5 minutes to go to half-time. 2-0 to Aberdeen, 2 goals in 12 minutes. Well, that was Levine catching the disease. But most out of character, really.
Yes, and he's just had a word with his goalkeeper as well, so total misunderstanding there.
Van der Vet. McKimmie. All a little tight for the return pass. The idea much appreciated by the connoisseurs in the crowd. Behind Henry Smith's goal, the majority of the Hearts fans here. So maybe they can roar their team towards that goal in the second half. Levine and Smith on the same wavelength that time. McKimmie and Grant wanting to play their football even on the edge of their own area. And Van der Ven of similar philosophy, and by skill they kept possession. And Tosh McKinley, who I think genuinely saw a chance of embarrassing Aberdeen then by nicking the ball in a position which might have served Hearts well, but he was late.
Yeah, you say he tried to nick it. I mean, I can't understand people that give away free kicks in situations like that. When you've got Peter Van der Ven's going towards his own goal, he's struggling for an option. And what does Tosh McKinley do? Make it easy for him by giving away a free kick.
Beck, room in which to express himself, but Curry trying to prevent that now. Bannon. There's a spare man here for Hearts, it's McKinley. Bannon's coming in on the far post and wasn't particularly well picked up. A better cross and it would have been a chance. Although Eamon Bannon is probably better at serving the ball in for others to head for goal than converting the crosses himself. First half, which is drawing to a close, in which Aberdeen have been supreme. Mason didn't quite drop for him, did for Van der Ven.
The confidence of a goal for the big Dutchman there. But again, good block, David McCreary gets in there. This little lad will work his heart out for Hearts tonight. And he gets the important block on that one.
Foster. McKinley dwelt, and that's not something you get much time to do against Aberdeen in this mood. He was dispossessed by Van der Ven, and it's led to a foul by McPherson and maybe a booking as well. George Smith seems to be taking that course.
As we see it again, I think it's actually Tosh McKinley who's having a word to George Smith. He's booking him for that little pullback. I think David McPherson's going to get away with this. A little nudge in the back, but it is actually Tosh McKinley that's been booked for the previous foul.
McKinley, who'd been frustrated at losing the ball. Well, Hearts are still in this quarter-final, but only just. It didn't look that way after 12 minutes when Aberdeen roared into that lead with Peter Van der Ven's first goal for the club and Paul Mason's fourth in 3 games. Back to the drawing board, perhaps, for Alec MacDonald, but I think deep down he'll be relieved that it is only 2. It could have been much worse. Aberdeen in command. So far, so good from their point of view. They lead Hearts by 2-0 at Pittodrie. We'll be back after this short break.
In just a moment, after we've heard the latest sports news from Anna Walker.
And Celtic are being held in the other Skull Cup quarter-final being played tonight, and that against Second Division Queen of the South. Here now are all the latest scores. Starting with that other Skull Cup tie, it's Celtic 1, Queen of the South 1. Jackie Jekanovski for Celtic after just 9 minutes. Andy Thompson then equalised. And in Barclays League Division 1, Manchester City 1, Aston Villa 0. City have just scored from a Mark Ward penalty. Now the Rumbelows Cup first round second leg. Bristol City 0, West Bromwich Albion 0. Hereford 1, Brentford 0. Lincoln City 1, Halifax 0, Oxford United 1, Reading 0. Steve Foster, the scorer there for Oxford. Scarborough 2, Rochdale 2. Rochdale looking sure to go through after their first leg win. And that's all the scores for now. We'll be back again after full time. Back now, though, to Pittodrie and John Inverdale.
A wry smile from Gordon McQueen when he heard that Celtic score, I can tell you, but still, we can perhaps discuss that at the end of that match. Gordon, that first half, in parts, Aberdeen were brilliant.
Yeah, they've just carried on where they left off on Saturday. They were absolutely sensational in the first half there. Midfield, terrific, moving the ball about. And the front too, their movement and pace has been tremendous, and they've put their Hearts defence in all sorts of bother.
Very early on too. 2 goals before 12 minutes were out. Let's look at the first one. Van der Van's first goal for the club. Actually, it was made by a pass from Jim Beck earlier on, wasn't it?
Mason does great here. He gets in front of McPherson, shields the ball, twists, turns, gets a little break there, but knocks the ball over. Nobody picking up Van der Ven here at back post. They're the type, wallop, terrific finish. They'll either go in the net or land in the golf course at the back of the stand.
Yes. And here is a look at Mason's goal.
Yeah, just a long back ball to the back again. Headed clearance. Ball goes out here. Eventually gets switched here to the far side. Similar to the first goal, nobody really picking up at the back post, but what about this for composure? What a finish, absolutely magnificent. The only place he could have put it.
And he's in good form at the moment, Mason, isn't he? From a Scottish point of view, it's a shame he's English.
Yeah, well, from a Scottish point of view, Andy Roxburgh sitting watching in the stand tonight. Paul Mason scored, an Englishman, a Dutchman scored, and Jim Bett, a player that's retired from Scottish football, has been outstanding in the middle of the park.
One other incident we must mention in that half, Hearts could have had a penalty. What did you make of that?
Oh, there's no doubt. There's no doubt this was a penalty. To be fair to Hearts, they've not sat back. I mean, Aberdeen have had to defend well, but Foster breaks here, just nudges it away for Irvine, and Irvine takes the legs away from him. I think everybody agreed that was a penalty.
Indeed, I'm sure you're right. Anyway, we can look forward to a tremendous next 45 minutes, I'm sure, if it's anything like the first, and that comes up after this break. It's just about stopped raining, I think. Now, Gordon McQueen, what way back for Hearts, if any?
Well, I mean, what do you do when Aberdeen are in this kind of form that they are at the moment? But there's one thing for sure about any Alec McDonald's teams, they certainly won't lie down. And maybe if they just get a little break in the second half, get a goal, who knows, they might claw back into the game again.
OK, well, I guess that cheer was because of the Celtic score being announced over the tannoy, I think. Still, we were rushed a wee bit before the game began, so let's let Martin Tyler examine the teams tonight a little bit more leisurely at the start of this second half. Martin.
Yes, thank you, John. Of course, we await to see whether there will be any changes during the half-time break, but Aberdeen, understandably, stuck with the side that won 3-0 at Parkhead on Saturday, with Hearts doing the tactical rethink. They abandoned their sweeper system, moved Neil Berry to right back, played 4 across midfield, and brought in Wayne Foster, who has missed some of the early games through injury, to provide some hustle and bustle up front, which he's done in truth. And Walter Kidd does come on as a change for Alec MacDonald. And we'll just check round to see who's missing, and it looks to me as though David McCreary isn't out there, who got that bang on the head in the first half, although he shrugged it off quickly. Walter Kidd has gone to right back, and Neil Berry's gone into midfield. Hearts are 2 goals down. The second half is underway. And Andy Gray, having opted for the easier life in television rather than management. But what would you have said at half-time?
Well, I think that the first thing you would have said is, get out there, lads, and let's win the second half. If we can do that, then we've got a chance. Let's get a goal, put them under a bit of pressure. I think they've given Aberdeen far too much room, and they've got to stop that initially in the second half.
Well, they've got a corner, which Cahoon takes. Berry, Levine, and offside as McPherson went in. Well, that was in the Hearts dressing room. If you were in Alex Smith's shoes, what would you have said?
Well, I think more of the same. Go out there, lads. Keep on top of them. Keep tight at the back. Don't make any mistakes. Don't be complacent at the back. You'll be saying the game's not won yet, like all managers do, even if they're 4 up. Alec will be saying the game's not won. Let's get another one and kill the game off. I would think that would be the message from the Aberdeen dressing room.
Mason. Oh, and here's Grant. Maybe crossed his mind to take it first time, and then the first touch let him down badly after a superb turn by Mason.
Yes, again, Paul Mason embarrassing what could be one of Scotland's centre-halves next week, Craig Levein. And look at that, spots him perfectly. And his first touch, I think he'd made his mind up to take it on, but his first touch has just let Brian Grant down there. But again, a super move from Aberdeen, who have carved open the Hearts' defence.
Alex Smith, who knows Brian Grant well from the days when they were together at Stirling, says really Brian Grant's problem is his lack of self-belief. He was born in Bannockburn. Didn't think anybody who came from there lacked self-belief. And maybe that just was a factor then, that he didn't really back himself to take that chance. So the third goal continues to elude Aberdeen. Bannon. Piece of slippery work on the far side, a mistake by Irvine. Very stopped by Bet. Oh, and Hillhouse making Levein scurry. Mason just a little over-exuberant then. And he's got an intimidating presence, Walter Kidd, that isn't always appreciated by opposing supporters or opposing forwards. Mason. McKimmie, good running by Van der Ven, and not struggling to get the ball away, and he just can't let it roll near Mason.
No, you can't, but I'll tell you one guy who'll be bitterly disappointed he shot for goal was Robert Connor. He was absolutely wide open just on the edge of the box if he'd have looked up. But like all strikers that are greedy and hungry and on form, he thought, I'm going for goal.
But what is so amazing about Mason is that really that the fans here have seen him in so many roles, but he was playing in Holland as a fullback. Moved up to midfield, and yet he scored goals from fullback. If you've got it, you've got it.
I actually played against him here 2 years ago in Aberdeen vs Rangers reserves, and he was fullback. I think he scored that day as well.
Did you score, Andy, though?
No answer to that.
Here's Bet. Connor certainly felt that. And Walter Kidd has a free kick in his favour.
I think Walter Kidd will be glad that the referee didn't have a view of that tackle that we had.
News has just reached us, incidentally, that Celtic have regained the lead. It's 2-1. Joe Miller with the second. Connor. It's still a fascinating phase of this because there's plenty of time for Hearts, and the longer it goes on, the greater the risk of some Aberdeen complacency setting in. Steered back by McLeish. Mackay. And this time it goes Connor's way in a similar incident to the one with Kidd, although not quite as painful for Connor. Hart certainly continuing to challenge and keep the game alive in midfield without making the sort of chances that will give their supporters hope. Supporters who've travelled up here in the rain and won't feel yet that they've got too much of a run for their money, having seen their team go behind so early in the match. Well, Aberdeen back in the groove again. Grant's shot touched off to him by Mason at the end of a mood of such speed it was bewildering to Hearts.
Yes, once again, Van der Ven and Paul Mason, two men top form, and he's getting closer as Brian Grant. He's forced Henry Smith into a save.
There's a short corner on here that Hearts have been a bit slow to react to. Well, the shots on target, only not an outstanding statistic in Aberdeen's favour. I'd like to know the total shots, because I would say they might be 5 times what Hearts achieved. Kidd playing very into some difficulty. Between them, they've sorted it out with some help from Levine. Grant's won it. Hillhouse is onside. There are problems here for Hearts. Mason. It's a free kick, which Connor will line up. McLeish has stayed back this time. Ooh, and Henry Smith found it a little deeper than he thought. McPherson wasn't sure that he was able to let the ball run behind, and Connor makes his way across now to take the corner. This time McLeish has been freed from his defensive responsibilities. Irvin is there as well. Oh, and that came off Berry. Bet trying to take on the line, really. Get past one and you get past a lot of them. Connor on his strong side. Now on his weaker side, although he didn't fancy that. Van der Ven! When you buy players from Holland, you're usually buying good technique.
Yes, it is the one thing you can be sure of, that when you buy these Dutch players, their technical ability is always very good. One of the most difficult skills in the game, a volley, catches it perfectly, just a little bit too high. But once again, Aberdeen showing some great stuff.
And their supporters here revelling in it. They might be perhaps not the most boisterous crowd in Britain, but they know what they're seeing, and they really have had a terrific era of entertainment.
Yes, they may not make much noise, Martin, but they certainly enjoy their football up here.
should be Smith's. Irvin, and as far as McPherson. Aberdeen still working hard themselves to earn the right to play.
You're quite right, Martin. It's the type of thing that Hearts have got to get into their game. If they continue to allow Jim Bett the space and freedom and Robert Connor and players of that ability, the space and freedom they've enjoyed so far, then they're going to find it very, very difficult to get back in the game.
Van de Ven, play on. Mason's there for another, is he? No. Mackay. Foster, that's what he's been asked to do. And Wayne Foster, McLeish was grateful that in the end Foster perhaps showed in that cameo what he's all about, the direct drive, but not the finish.
Oh yeah, it was a superb run and the type of thing that Hearts need. Drags it in past McLeish, but look at that for defending. That's how Aberdeen are all about. Not only can they play this game, they can also defend when they need to.
Yes, rather than pointing a finger at Foster, it was Brian Irvin who deserved the praise then.
And probably the type of form that's keeping a man like Willie Miller sitting on the sidelines.
Even Willie Miller might agree, but I doubt it.
He didn't agree with many referees in his time, Willie,
No,
did he?
Enjoyed the odd chat, didn't he? And I must say, I mentioned I watched him in the five-a-sides with the reserves this morning. He was disputing a few decisions there as well.
Well, some things never change.
But he's here at the ground tonight, as you'd expect, and I'm sure he's delighted that the team without him is still performing so well. Van de Ven with a throw. We're 13 minutes into the second half. Just the two goals that came in that similar phase in the first period. And since then, a succession of openings for Aberdeen. Some stout-hearted resistance from Alec McDonald's team, without ever really looking as yet that they've found their way out of this particular maze. Hillhouse with the nearest of flicks, designed to try and get Mason through the centre. Van de Ven. It's difficult for a team to totally dominate the entire 90 minutes, so Hearts will be hoping that they can catch Aberdeen having to draw breath before Aberdeen can confirm their place as what would be the fourth semi-finalist, because we've news that Celtic have done it, finished 2-1 at Parkhead. And Joe Miller, who I remember seeing winning the Scottish Cup against Rangers a couple of seasons ago, has got the winning goal in the Skull Cup quarter-final in Glasgow tonight. So it's Rangers, Dundee United, Celtic.
And with one of these, we're going to have four really, really great teams in the semi-final. Looks forward to some great semi-finals ahead.
Still half an hour to go here. And Aberdeen really still needing to confirm their superiority with a third goal. McLeish standing his ground, and McPherson. Well, that might be something they'll talk about when they get together as Scotland players next week.
That's good experience defending from Alec McLeish there. He knew exactly what he was doing. Stood his ground, let the ball run out.
Arms by the side, not an elbow in sight. Here's McLeish again. That's Bannon, who's a crafty user of the ball, and just overhit it, trying to get Foster through the centre. McPherson being dealt with unfairly by Hillhouse in something of a catchweight contest. A decision the Dutchman accepts philosophically. If anything, it's the heaviest rain that we've had on this day that always seemed to promise rain, but it didn't actually arrive until a couple of hours before the kickoff. It slicked the pitch in a way that anyone who's ever kicked a ball knows it's a pleasure to play on. And Hillhouse gets the verdict this time. And it's McPherson's turn to shake the head wryly. Off goes McLeish. Bet takes it. McLeish going in. Might have actually come off Levine in the end.
Yes, I think you're quite right, Martin. It's a super free kick, oh, in the perfect area. But I think you see it just goes ahead of Alec McLeish, and it's Craig Levine's chest. It just knocks it back to his goalkeeper. Good defending.
Just in need of a little more craft at the moment, Hearts. And it's difficult for their more creative players to get involved against this more powerful Aberdeen midfield. Bannon. Certainly the likes of Bannon and Mackay, given room, could prompt a revival for Hearts. In a way, the night has gone the way the season has gone so far for the two clubs. McPherson. Cahoon. Slipped Irvin. Robertson's made a good run ahead of him. McKinney held them up for a moment. Here's Bannon. Oh, Cahoon trying to pull a rabbit from the hat. And he's done that before. Kidd. John Robertson having to fetch and carry.
You get the impression, Martin, that Aberdeen are quite happy for the game to tick over at this pace. They feel no threat at the moment from Hearts, and they don't want to instill any pace into the game. They're quite in control, and it really is going to be up to Hearts to change the pace of the game if they're going to rescue it in any sort of way.
Well, they're certainly playing with the three up now with Cahoon, but Kidd, who has made his reputation as a destructive player, not able to put a brick in the right place then for his side. David Robertson, it's not a spell that Aberdeen would regard as their best in the game by any means, but they're containing. They haven't lost too much of a measure of control. But Robertson getting involved in the play more. Foster. Connor will keep it in. Beck chugging up on the right, but Connor was actually forced to keep the ball longer really than he would have wanted. Mackay, Bannon, Robertson, Bannon. Oh, and that's handball, is it? David Robertson. Well, I can't believe that the referee didn't see it. He can only have ruled that it wasn't intentional. More on that in a moment as Aberdeen take it up. And those who've come from Edinburgh are making their feelings heard. Here's Grant. Aberdeen not losing concentration because of that. Maybe Hearts might. A justified claim for a penalty in the first half. And David Robertson, the left back, well, the ball certainly struck the arm, Andy Gray.
Yes, I don't think there can be any doubt about that it certainly struck the arm, and the referee did see it strike the arm. You can see here it's Eamon Bannon. I mean, I always wonder about this rule, ball to hand. I mean, that's a cross going in the box. To me, that's a penalty kick. There can be no other decision there. I'm absolutely amazed that George Smith could feel otherwise. Eamon Bannon's crossing the ball into a dangerous area and it's stopped with a hand. It must be a penalty.
And you said the final score here would be 2-1 when we were having our little pre-game bet. No wonder you're upset. Mackay. Berry. It's rather lucky for David Robertson again there with a miss kick. Mason.
But it's that old saying in football, isn't it, Martin, that when your team is playing well and you're at the top and everything's going for you, you do get all the breaks. You do tend to get all the referees' decisions.
But let's pay tribute again to Hearts for keeping this quarter-final alive when it looked from their point of view dead and buried after 12 minutes. Their professional attitude has been first class, even though they've been outplayed for long periods. And remember that last season in the Premier Division, they virtually matched Aberdeen. There's a bit of boot changing there by Hillhouse, that they, Hearts and Aberdeen were virtually stride for stride through the league season in pursuit of Rangers. So there wasn't much between them then. There was a lot between them in the first half here.
Yes, but you do feel that if Aberdeen had really needed the goals, that they were always there for them. I think they've played this game within themselves, certainly in the second half. They did what they set out to do, and that was get an early goal, and then got the other one very early, and they've said, well, it's up to Hearts now to come at us if they want to get something from this game. They've played it that a really good team does play it.
Our pop music correspondent, John Inverdale, referred to the pop concert here that's been going on, and one or two of the Aberdeen players were there last night. Hans Hillhouse was amongst them, and they weren't sitting down, so I just wonder whether the legs are getting a bit tired. It was all done with the manager's permission here, I hasten to add. I wouldn't have dreamt of telling the story otherwise. McLeish and company having a little more defending to do. And is this game, which had an explosive start, going to be of similar style towards its finish? We've had 26 minutes of the second half. 2-0 still to Aberdeen. Hillhouse looking to turn that into 3. And it is a penalty. And Hearts will know now that it is not their night. Kidd came across, it was a double challenge on the Dutchman.
Yes, I think you're quite right. It's definitely not Hearts' night. I would like to see this again. First impression from me were there wasn't a penalty, no contact there. I don't think that's a penalty. It's definitely not Hearts' night. I think they're hard done by. That again is, in my opinion, not a good decision from the referee.
Well, Henry Smith is in the firing line, but it's John Robertson being spoken to after some argy-bargy as we were watching the rerun of the incident.
But you can understand it, Martin. I mean, having 2 good penalty claims turned down, far, far better penalty claims than that one, and then sudden to lose one of the softest penalties I've seen for some time. It's no surprise they have a little dig at the referee.
So Jim Bett to take it, and for Aberdeen, surely if he scores, this will mean the semi-final of the Skull Cup for the holders. 3-0 it is. And the look there of a man who has done his job and of a team that has done their job.
Yes, this is dispatched with great confidence. No problems for Jim Bett. Even keeper going the right way would have trouble getting anywhere near that. And it must be terrible for Andy Roxburgh to be sitting in the stand watching this performance from Jim Bett. And I think that's John Robertson in trouble with the referee again. No, it's Wayne Foster actually having a go at him again, no doubt. The referee calling him over.
Well, the frustration for a team which was almost blown out of the competition in the opening 12 minutes, rode some of the storm. We're still on the sea, so to speak, and have now been sunk by a referee's decision that they didn't agree with, and Foster speaking for them all.
But getting back to Bett, Martin, it must be terrible for Andy Roxburgh seeing him perform the way he's performed tonight and know that he's not going to play for Scotland again. Dreadfully sad loss for all us Scots.
And I just wonder whether Nottingham Forest know what they missed out on by not completing that deal that was really there to be completed. I understand that there wasn't much in terms of finance that needed to be sorted out. Whether Jim Bett would have gone, of course, that was his final decision. Would have been a chance for English fans who can now see him, of course, on the Sports Channel, playing in Scotland, but for fans at the grounds in England to see what a fine player he is and has been.
I'm just looking around at the Hearts players, and there's some heads hanging very low in their shirts just now. They look very dejected and disconsolate at the moment.
We're into the final 15 minutes, if as seems most probable, it is settled in 90. And Aberdeen, to be fair, despite the recent controversy, have made light of difficult conditions. Cahoon. And again. Berry. Hearts have got a lot of players forward here. Hasn't been the case very often tonight. This is Mackay. And offside against McPherson. The referee acknowledged the linesman's flag, but felt that Aberdeen had control of the ball. I'm not sure that they did. So 3 goals here, 3 penalty talking points, 2 not given towards Hearts and 1 given for Aberdeen. Been one of the players let off in the Aberdeen defence for that first half challenge on Foster. John Cahoon, who thinks about football very seriously and indeed matters outside football very seriously as well. He's not happy what he's experienced over the downs of this quarter-final from the Hearts viewpoint. Connor. Oh, and they couldn't catch Kidd out. Well, on a very dismal night weather-wise, the good folk of Aberdeen and a couple of thousand from Edinburgh have come out and seen a game that's been full of value, whether you're on the winning or the losing side. Mackay. Actually, Gary Mackay was telling me yesterday he was having his BSB dish fitted. I hope he won't hold it against us that the first match that his family have watched on the new system hasn't been such a successful one for his club. There he is, turning the ball back to Henry Smith. But welcome to our club, Gary. There are still incentives, of course, for players on the pitch, the Aberdeen players, particularly the goal scorers, with a holiday for the top scorer in the Skull Cup and plenty of spending money to go with it. Paul Mason is pushing himself into that particular frame.
Yeah, as long as it's not 2 weeks in Costa Rica, most Scots will be looking forward to that.
I can think of 1 or 2 worse places at the moment, Andy. Here's Irvine. Oh, Connor. Maybe time now for 1 or 2 party pieces. Bet. Connor's free for the deep cross. In fact, by the time the ball arrived, Bannard had spotted him and Kidd got to the ball in any case. Ten minutes left. Aberdeen 3, Hearts 0. And disregarding the specific incidents, I don't think the final outcome really is too disputable, Andy.
No, and it's been a very impressive performance from Aberdeen. People in England seeing them for the first time this season can't fail to have been impressed by this performance. Alex Smith has really got a fine side here, playing full of confidence, working very hard. Not all the quality players when it matters going forward, but these quality players are quite prepared to roll up the sleeves and defend for all it's worth. And when you get that combination, you're halfway to having a very good side, and that's what Alex Smith's got, a very good side.
Plus a whole crop of youngsters, putting these first-team regulars under pressure. Trying to get into the side now. Levine, can he recover from his mistake? He can. Here's Mason. He doesn't feel that his night's work is over yet. Maybe it's the fact that he failed at Everton as a youngster and has had to really work to make a name in the game, but there's a real hunger about his play.
And there's some Everton fans watching him tonight, wish he was probably there now.
For sure. Wishing you were there as well, Andy. Van der Ven. Berry. Hearts trying to be professional to the last. And to their credit, although they've competed, they haven't tried to kick their way out of trouble. Bannon. Foster allowed to get to that one, and it is a corner. Snelders, again, it was another little indication that Hearts are going to get nothing tonight, or it seems that way.
And it's nothing, it's a little bit of lack of concentration, I suppose, from Theo Snelders. Just bubbles off his hat, takes his eye off it, off the post, back into his arms.
McPherson got to it. Would you, Andy, pick any one particular player for Aberdeen?
I think it's very unfair. I suppose the pick of the midfield for me would certainly be Jim Beck, but the two boys up front, being a front player myself in my day, I've absolutely tormented two potential Scottish international centre-backs. I think Paul Mason and Hans Hielhaus have had tremendous games. Their work rate, their movement off the ball, and linking together have been quite superb.
Can Aberdeen piece together one more move to delight their supporters before the evening's affairs draws to a close? With Bet there's every chance. McKimmie, who was just pushing in the end.
And I wonder if there are three managers, namely Graham Souness, Jim McLean and Billy McNeil, hoping that Aberdeen is a team that they avoid in the semi-final draw tomorrow.
There's a foul by Grant. And Hielhaus goes off, and I was talking of the promising youngsters, and the name of Ian Jess figures high on that list. 19 years old, and well, just the chance to get a sweat on, really. Oh, Eamon Bannon trying to knock defenders out of the way in the penalty area. It's been a quarter-final here where Aberdeen came out determined to recapture the form that they showed in the league at Celtic on Saturday, and it wasn't elusive. It was right there from the off, emphasised by those 2 goals from Van der Ven and Mason, but they needed the penalty in the second half just to confirm that superiority. And for Hearts, it's been a night when they've had to just chase and work and hope. And they're still hoping with McPherson and Kidd. Who's offside against Jess, whose father comes from Northern Ireland, worked on the oil rigs in these parts. It was just a suggestion that Jess might take up an Irish qualification. It was one that he quickly poo-pooed himself and regards himself very much as a Scot. And he is in the under-21 squad. And a very interesting squad it looks too, under the control of Craig Brown. The problem for him is to get those players into Premier League first teams. Otherwise, there might be a lost generation in Scotland, which would be tragic. And I don't use that word lightly. That's the other side of the system that allows the foreigners to come in. A system that Alex Smith and Andy Roxburgh might have differing points of view on. There've been no real alarms, Andy Gray, have there, for Aberdeen?
No, you get the feeling that since the first minute when Robert Connor missed that chance, probably the first attack of the game, that they've held the upper hand, they've been in total control. It was almost going to be an uphill task for Hearts to come here tonight with the form that Aberdeen were in. Made doubly hard by the loss of 2 goals in 12 minutes. And I think from then, the good team that Aberdeen have showed they are, they've played within themselves, they haven't let Hearts any chances really at Theo Snelders, and are running out quite comfortable winners.
Grant's header, but it only found Banner for Hearts, who would feel still that might be some benefit for their league game. I think they're at home to Rangers, aren't they, on Saturday? If they can just find a touch here that might produce a goal. And in John Robertson, they've always got a player looking for just that.
Yes, he's desperate, I think, to get a goal with the Scotland manager watching him. But this is what the young lad's capable of. Not frightened to shoot. His team brings a good save from Theo Snelders, but Snelders is not going to be beaten with chances like that.
Well, the sponsors thinking along the same lines as Andy Gray. They've gone for their man of the match, for Jim Bett, who, like all the other players, will shortly be heading for a welcome bath. I'm full of admiration for the fighting spirit that Hearts have shown in circumstances, but that's not what they want to be remembered for here. They would love to have made a better fist of it, but the start here precluded that. Bet was deflected. Aberdeen looking to end the game with the same flourish.
Yes, and this would have capped a fine performance from Jim Bett if he'd have knocked one in from that range. It just shows you, even in the 90th minute, they're still going forward looking for goals.
David Robertson going in and fouling Smith. Possibly the last decision for George Smith. before blowing the whistle for the final time. The holders are through to the semi-final of the Skol Cup with a most conclusive display, emphasised by their work in the first half and in the opening 12 minutes in particular, when Van der Ven and Mason scored, and confirmed in the second half with Jim Bett's penalty on a night when Aberdeen got a penalty and Hearts will feel that they might have had two. But really they will know deep down that they came second here. So a final score as Aberdeen celebrate in the rain. Aberdeen 3, Hearts 0.